Good evening.
Hello.
You ordered to come earlier, I ordered.
Oh, wow.
You have good eyes.
It was shiny.
Hello and welcome. Okay. We're gonna get you a spot. This is gonna be our school board student representative. Oh, wonderful.
Tracy, coming up here, we probably need to do something formal about that. Also, I hate to say I'm putting you on the end.
Oh. Okay.
That's right.
In closed session, we can do that.
Okay.
So what we'll do is at 6:30, she opened.
Not many things. take priority.
I understand. And
I get it.
I get it. She'll- Yes,
But I do have an extra set.
in closed session, you will have to stay on it because.
Nice to meet you, Gracie.
I'll follow this paperwork. Okay.
And especially since one of the few policies is on sexually explicit.
And you don't have to sit up here and read this. If I just go down there and say anything.
Okay, that's fine. I would probably go to. I know about this one. I'm on a volleyball team, so I know, I might know a little bit about this.
And I just said. You would expect that big buses is necessary for the school. Anyway, that's something that could be representatives. The November the 14th, 2022 Middlesex County School Board meeting is now in session. Is there a motion to go into close?
So move.
There's a second.
Second.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
We're now in close. The chair will entertain a motion to go out of closed session.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Pursuant to the Code of Virginia, the board discussed personnel matters and student matters during closed session. Matters discussed in closed session have been added to the consent agenda and other parts of the agenda as action and information items. When members of the board certify that only lawful matters were discussed in closed session, please answer by roll call.
So check,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Burnett.
Yes.
All right, we'll all stand, pledge of allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
a nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I want to introduce our student representative to the school board, Gracie Winberry, and we're just so excited to have you. And I asked her if she had anything to say, and she said she was good tonight. But we'll look forward to other things later on. Thank you for being here and taking this on. We
Thank
really
you.
appreciate it. Additions and corrections to the agenda. I believe there are a couple of financial pieces and enrollment. Is that correct, Ms. Bagley?
That is correct.
Is there a motion to approve those?
So moved.
There's-
Second.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Public announcements, November the 18th, November is National Family Literacy Month. November the 18th is Substitute Educators Day. November the 23rd through the 25th is Thanksgiving holiday and the school division is closed. December the 1st is the end of the second quarter interim. December the 7th is interim reports issued, and December the 12th will be the next school board meeting at St. Clair Walker Middle School at 6:30. The floor is open for public comment. The floor is now closed. Board members, reports. Dr. Burnett, anything?
Yes, since our last meeting, the Chesapeake Bay Governor's School has had 2 meetings. And I think that just generally, the board, the joint board is very impressed with Jason Long, our new director. I think he's doing a great job. He seems to be very energetic and he's getting to all sites. So I think that right now we've got some strong leadership there and things are going pretty well.
Good. Mr. Reed?
No, I have nothing.
Okay. I have a couple of things. The regional special ed board met a week and a half ago, and things are going well there. We have some new personnel and they're enthusiastic and so excited about meeting the needs of these children that we're really pleased with that. Last Thursday, I virtually attended the delegate assembly meeting, began at 12, ended just about 3:30, I believe. There was no break, just for your information there. It was Zoom, and I thought I'd just give you a brief overview of these legislative positions. These were all but one were amendments to the current positions, and primarily they encouraged the legislators to not pass mandates that are unfunded. And I'll give you examples. We need more English language learners help, educators, and we know that they're going to ask us to do so and insist that we do so. And so we'd like to have some money to help us do that. The state testing and coordination support, since there are a reasonable number of tests and the expense is quite a bit for each division, they are asking that the state provides more money to help with that. You getting a theme here? The technology funding, since we of course seriously need technology funding because of risk threats and that kind, and to go with the testing. So once again, we're encouraging the state to provide some funding, more funding for that. There was a motion which was passed to includes state assistance and facilitation for school divisions moving their fleet from diesel powered buses to electric buses. And one of the districts is using propane, and so that was added. Quite a bit of discussion about that. And then, as we know, school construction. Everybody wants the state to provide school construction so that we can better provide our buildings to be more energy efficient, which in the long run will help everyone. The standards of quality and accreditation, there was a discussion and amendment that was proposed and passed about lessening the requirements for drivers to get certified, because everyone, as you know, has great difficulty finding bus drivers. They weren't, it wasn't a drastic cut, but they were asking them to find ways to help people get certified. And there was one gentleman from the looks of him on Zoom, to be about probably my age, and he drove a bus when he was in high school. And I remember students driving buses in high school. I couldn't help but grin because I thought, I don't think that's going to happen anymore. But that's what he was sort of implying there. Also, there was an amendment to a legislative position number 7 to help with mental health through in school and out of school, providing more money, more opportunities for counselors in order to help students. Also, an amendment to encourage support for additional state resources and staffing dedicated to improving academic and career planning, post-secondary transition planning services, and post-secondary employment options for students with disabilities. Then there was one that was passed with absolutely no, and no one saying anything negative, and it was about the mathematics and science education, continued access to rigorous and advanced mathematics and science instruction in grades K through 12. And then, of course, there's a whole list of possibilities where these funds could come from in order to help each school division to improve their instruction. And then work-based opportunities, initiatives to break down barriers for students who are in general ed and special ed in order for them to have opportunities to do internships during school. And then let's see. The most controversial one was not an amendment. It was a change in position. The current legislative position, non-public school students participating in Virginia High School League activities. The VSBA opposes non-public school students participating in Virginia High School League activities. The current request was to cancel this altogether. And the recommendation is for a local choice option. VHSL came to the VSBA Board of Directors in the summer, and this was their position that they asked the VSBA to take up. I will tell you that this was at the end of the session. People were tired, so there was not as much discussion as I thought there might have been. One of the reasons 2 or 3 schools spoke up, representatives spoke up, is they have so few students that they cannot fill teams. And that's why they're interested in having homeschool students participate. This passed by 1 vote. I think the vote was, I should have written it down, but I think it was like 43 to 42.
And all you needed was a majority vote, and there were abstentions. So it would appear that the new legislative position by the VSBA will be to encourage a local option position for homeschool students to participate in public high school activities of all sorts, but primarily sports. So that was it in a nutshell.
It was funny that you talk about student bus drivers. Talked to a gentleman today who said he was a student bus driver for Middlesex many years ago. And I was like, because I had an uncle that did the same thing in King Queen. And he said that won't happen now.
All right, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So move.
Second.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Action items, appropriation request, Dr. Seitz.
Yes, we have three actually, starting on page 66. And the first one, the miscellaneous revenue for $14,000 was for sale of lawn maintenance equipment that we listed on Gov Deals, and we're able to sell for that amount. The vision screening grant, students in grades kindergarten, 3rd, 7th, and 10th required by Virginia code to have a vision screening. Typically our nurses would do that, but there's some grant funding available that pays for other companies to come in that can give a more specific and detailed screening so that the parents have better information for the students. So that's what that grant covers, that for an outside company to come in and do that. On page 67, this one actually is a reversal because we had to appropriate it in July, but we had already included that in the 22-23 budget. So this particular one is a reversal.
Okay.
And then the last one, which covers 2 pages, are all of the federal awards. These are the actual numbers. And so when we do the budget in the spring, we have more of a forecasted amount. It's at this time of year that we receive the actual amount for all of these awards. So that's where there's a difference in each of those.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the appropriations request?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions for Dr. Seitz? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. The policy review on first reading.
Okay, and we have 3 of those also. First one is on page 71. And for this one, we're recommending a reimbursement rate for meals for conferences be increased. You see that we've for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, we've not seen a change in those reimbursement amounts since 2018, and a lot has changed since 2018. So that's the change in that policy.
Is there a motion to approve GCBD -R3 on first reading?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
All right.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
All right, the next one is on page 72, policy IIA. And this is an update that comes to us that's required by the Virginia Code from Senate Bill 656. That required VDOE to develop model policies for local school boards by the summer for us to review and that go into effect January 1 of 2023. School boards have to adopt policies that are consistent with the VDOE model policies. In this policy, as you've read through it, ensures parental notification of instructional material that includes sexually explicit content. And so all of the red that's been added in here, the definition of instructional material comes from the Virginia Department of Education. All of the other definitions are taken from the Code of Virginia. So just to note, part of what has to be, which is is said in here is that the superintendent's responsible for. Now, the process of determining, how we're identifying material, how parents are being notified, a way for parents to opt for their children to receive a different material if an item is deemed to contain sexually explicit content, working on all of that process, and then also maintaining a list of materials. They're required to be maintained online if that's feasible to review materials. It would not necessarily be feasible for us in Middlesex County Public Schools because all of our materials are not online. And so we would know why that's not feasible, but then give parents the option to review materials as a hard copy within the buildings. So that's the processes we're working on. Dr. Bishop, along with Baton Haley, our literacy specialists, have met with all of the secondary English teachers and the media specialists and the principals. We've developed a form to review all of the material that's being used as instructional materials for teachers to start that process now and making that review to identify if there's anything already that contains within any of the definitions that are within the policy. We also have to establish, parents have to be notified 30 days prior to the materials being used. Next year, we'll likely go to a system that it's identified in the syllabus that the student receives, but this goes into effect in the middle of the year, and those have already gone home. And so if there's anything now, that information will be communicated in written form from the school. And then policy IIAB just adds the piece that teachers have to follow the procedures that are put in place with the previous policy.
Sound like that's gonna be kind of taxing on trying to keep up with all updates and keeping them, keeping hard copies available.
It certainly adds more work to what the teachers are already doing in their planning.
Yeah.
So the superintendent's procedures that are referred to here are what you're working on,
Yes,
and will we see those?
I'll bring those back to the December meeting to let you know what the protocol for all of that will be.
And those would be available to parents?
Yes.
Okay.
Will there be any way of determining if a parent has actually received the letter or the email or whatever?
So that's a piece of the process that we're working on, is what that notification will look like. Will it be an email? Will it be through our student information system that it's pushed out and communicated out that way? Those are some of the options that we have to do that. As I said, I think right now the high school English department already, when they send their syllabus home at the beginning of the year, they ask for a signature and for it to come back, which is a note of, I have seen this. It's not an opt-in policy. It's not an opt-out policy necessarily. The parent would have to come forward and say, if an item is identified or a piece of material is identified, they would have to get in touch with the teacher to state that they wanted an alternative material for their student.
And so that would be done one-on-one. How would or maybe you're still working in that procedure?
We are still working on that
Okay.
procedure.
Good luck.
Thank you.
All right, is there a motion to approve? Letters down, right? Policy IIA and policy IIAB on first reading.
So move.
Second,
Any other questions for Dr. Seitz or Dr. Bishop? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
All right.
Any opposed? Thank you. All right, we have the Title III application.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Dr. Seitz, Kathleen Velez is not able to attend tonight, and I will be presenting that today.
Okay, thank
Right.
you.
This is just a review of our Title III application is for English language learners. The grant fund is $3,026.14. It is a consortium, so a group of divisions go in together and split the money for them. We have 27 students who are identified as ELL. About half of those are levels 1 and 2, which receive direct services in English, Spanish, Chinese, and Hungarian. Within the application, it's really divided into three different lines. There is the line for Imagine Learning, which is a online program, but it also has the functionality of using Spanish, and we can translate in Spanish to help students cross that bridge. And then we have professional development, which is another part of that grant. And then, of course, materials for ELL, which is books, visuals, bilingual kind of books, have English and Spanish or Chinese or Hungarian within this. So that is our grant for Title III.
Is there a motion to approve the Title III application?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions for Dr. Bishop? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Dr. Bishop. Our budget calendar.
The budget calendar is located on page 107. It follows the same timeline as last year. Budget packets have already gone out and are due back at the end of this week from all of the departments and principals. And then you'll see the other meetings. I think the piece to note is that in February, it does require 2 additional meetings by the board. One of those follows our school board meeting in February. 2 days after that, we'll present our draft budget to the Board of Supervisors, and then our public hearing for the school board will be at the end of February on the 27th. Other than that, it really is the regular school board meeting times.
All right. Is there a motion to approve the FY 2024 budget calendar draft?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. All right, our instructional reports. Dr. Bishop.
Just one part of the instructional part is the MCPS staffing ratios, which are shown here in page 109 of the book of your packet. At each is a grade level ratio, teacher to student to teacher ratio, goes through St. Clair Walker and divided by department. And if there are any questions with those ratios, I am free to entertain any questions.
In the elementary school, are our grades, do we primarily have 4 teachers in each grade?
We have 5 at
5
each grade level,
at each grade level. Okay.
5 at each grade level.
At every grade level. I thought there were a couple that we had.
There was used to be last year, I think, 4th grade was a 4th person team. There you go. And we have this year.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
All
And then
right.
we have instructional reports from our, beginning with St. Clair Walker, Dr. Sanders.
And I'm asking Dr. Walsh to join me because we will be talking about reading and math. But before we dig into the numbers tonight, I would like to start off by talking a little bit about the goals and the priorities we had at St. Clair Walker, and then really focusing on the importance of how we do things at St. Clair Walker to meet the needs of young adolescents, that 10 to 15 years of age range. So at the beginning of the school year, at our opening faculty meeting, we really focused on 3 areas. We want to make sure we help our students become academically successful, behaviorally successful, and then we're working on creating a culture of kindness. So tonight we're really going to focus on the academic success, but I do want to give you all some background on what we're doing to help them behaviorally and when it comes to being a good citizen and creating a culture of kindness. Because this, as I said a few minutes ago, between the ages of 10 to 15, students are going through a lot of brain development. And during this time in their lives, their brain is developing just as much or about the same as it is when they're an infant. So think about all the changes that infants are going through at a young age and then putting those amount of changes into 10 to 15-year-olds. So when we get these 6th graders, they're going through all kinds of things. They can't sit still. Their bodies are disproportionate. And I had the opportunity to attend the AMLE conference a few weeks ago, the Association for Middle Level Educators. And that was a wonderful experience for me because it really put into perspective how important it is for us to focus on the needs of these young adolescents. And if you're familiar with Jack Burkmeyer, he is a middle school guru, and he did a great job of explaining why when middle schoolers have to go sharpen their pencils, it's not a direct point from A to B. They're going to stop and touch everybody, knock some things over, sharpen their pencil, blow the pencil shavings everywhere, and then they're not going to go back and sit down following the same route they got there because they can't sit still. And the reason being, and the way Jack Burkmeyer explains it, is this is your spine and it's fusing, but you're not comfortable. But middle schoolers can't articulate that. And I myself didn't realize that your spine is fusing between the ages of 10 and 15. And that's why they can't sit still, or they slouch down in their seats all the time. And we're constantly saying, sit up, sit up. So that's why movement is so important for middle schoolers. We're very fortunate. Our blocks are about 68 minutes. So we're able to chunk our blocks into manageable attention span activities for our students. And we've also made sure we've been incorporating more breaks, and we're fortunate that students have health and PE every day to get that movement in as well. So again, our adolescents, they have a lot of needs beyond just the academic needs. And we do want to make sure we focus on that. And we have added back our SOAR cards this year, where students can earn SOAR cards for being academically successful and also being a successful citizen, demonstrating safety, ownership, attitude, and respect. So they have their cards that they get to wear. They just earn them after their first quarter. They have certain privileges that come along with those cards. We also have our Seahawk store where they can earn points by demonstrating SOAR characteristics. And that is a good motivator, because also what we know is that adolescent brain is not developed, and trying to get them to be intrinsically motivated can be difficult. So we have put some extrinsic motivators in place to keep them going. So just some background on who we're talking about, because as the data tells a story, there are students behind all of these scores. And it's important that we take a look at each individual student. And that's one thing we are very fortunate at St. Clair Walker, because we are so small, our teachers really do have a specific or a focus on each specific student so they can meet their needs. So we're going to take a look at the data that we have here, starting off with the school quality indicators, which I'm sure you all have seen. And in academic achievement, we are all green. We have level 1 in English, math, and science. You can see when it comes to the achievement gaps in English, we are at a level 3 indicator. That's the red that you can see on the screen in front of you. And we're going to be looking a little bit deeper into that in a minute. And then also you can see chronic absenteeism. And clearly, if you have chronic absenteeism is at a level 2. Clearly, in order to be successful academically and behaviorally, you have to be in school. So we have really worked diligently this year to make sure that Ms. Vicky, our administrative assistant, keeps track of the initial attendance. Our school counselor, Ms. Teagle, she follows up. And then Mrs. Parks is also involved when we need to set up meetings and get Ron Hostinsky involved. So you'll see how we're addressing some of our level 2 and 3 indicators as we move through this presentation. All right, so you can see that as we look at our achievement gaps in English, why we are in a level 3. We do have 2 level 3 indicators when it comes to the English scores, that they are in our Black students and our students with disabilities. So those are our 2 target groups, but we're also keeping a close eye and making sure we are supporting our students who are economically disadvantaged, along with students who are multiple races. Now, math, we have 1 level 2, and you can see that is also in students with disabilities. We are keeping an eye on that as well. Okay, so let's take a deeper dive into the data. This data is pulled directly from the VDOE website, and you can see that when it came to the reading SOL testing scores from last spring, overall, we had a 65% pass rate. Now, this is not including growth, and we're going to look at growth a little bit later. This is students who passed the SOL test with a 400 or above. And if you look and see, we did demonstrate growth from the 2020-2021 school year to the 21-22 school year. I think that kind of connects back looking at absenteeism. We were in school more during the 21-22 school year. So we expect to see continued growth in our SOL scores, because SOL testing scores, because we do have students here. And just for your records too, on the screen, the gray indicates St. Clair Walker, the navy is the division, and then the red is the state. So yes, you can see there's some struggles going on in reading, but again, I still think there are some positives that we need to highlight here. If you move on to the next screen, clicker here. We break it down by our gap groups. And again, our Black students, we are keeping a careful eye on. There was a 51% pass rate during the 21-22 school year. And again, I do want to point out, we showed growth from the 20-21 school year from 37% to 51%. The other gap group that we are keeping a close eye on is students with disabilities. You can see we went from 33% to 36%. And here shortly, we're going to talk about what we're doing to support these students. So you can see right now, we're just getting into the numbers. Next, we have our students who are economically disadvantaged. And we had a 54% pass rate. Again, this is not indicating growth during the 21-22 school year, but that was an improvement from the 20-21 school year. And this is what I really do want to focus on. Yes, we have some growth to make. However, I do want to show you all the growth that our students did make last year. If you look at just the straight pass rates, that does not include growth. And when I say growth, that means maybe the student did not score 400 or above on the SOL test, but maybe they moved from band 1 to band 2. And if you would like any more of that information broken down, I'm happy to show you how you calculate the growth. You had to move from one band to the next. And I'm going to throw some numbers out there just to give you an example. For example, maybe a student scored a 389. That's not a passing score of 400, but if the year before they scored a 353, that growth from 353 to 389 was enough to demonstrate growth. And that's where you can see in the green, all students in the area of reading, if you include growth, it was a 71% pass rate. And again, I think that's something to really capitalize on, because maybe the students did not meet that passing score, but they were able to grow over the school year. And these students, they really have worked hard to demonstrate that growth. And these teachers work hard. And if you stop and think about it, some of these students may have had 2 years without being in a physical school building. And we know how online learning has made some impacts. I'm going to, oh, go ahead. Mm-hmm.
So the 71% pass rate for all students,
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean that all students passed, or 71% of the students passed. It means that you take the pass rate plus the growth rate. Is that what that is?
That's exactly right. So 65% indicates the number of students who scored 400 or above, and the 71% includes the students who passed, and it also includes the students who demonstrated growth.
Okay.
And you can see that in all areas. You know, you have your pass rates, but then when you include the growth measures, we did see improvement there across the board. Okay, in writing, we did not take SOL, the writing SOL test during the 2020-2021 school year. And last year we did, we had a 45% pass rate. And that is something that is really on our radar right now, because we need to get students writing. And I will talk to you a little bit in a second about what we are doing to make sure they are writing so that we can improve those scores. So this data right here is based on the spring 2022 scores. This year, we have taken MAP tests, measurable academic progress. And you can see this is the data that teachers, along with the SOL testing, teachers are using this data to guide their instruction. And we're going to start off with looking at the 8th graders. And you can see that out of 102 8th graders, there are 45 students who are at or above the grade level mean. Now, what I do want to draw your attention to is if you look at the bands that we have low, low average, average, high average, and high. And when you break that down, we actually have 59% of students performing in the average to above average range. And MAP score is on a bell curve. So you're going to have students who perform in that low to low average range. Those are the students that our teachers really put a focus on to make sure their gaps are being closed. And you can look here in the breakdown. Again, this is specific to 8th grade. 8th grade has some concerns in the area of comprehension of literacy text. So you can look at the red band, and then you can really hone in. You open up your MAP reports, you can see specific data for each child. And that's where teachers can give intervention based on their specific needs. In 7th grade, 43 out of 93 students are at or above the grade level mean. And that's 65%. That means there are 65% of students who are performing at or above average. And in 7th grade, it appears that all 3 areas are areas that they can look at, but the red band, the low average band is definitely getting smaller. And then for 6th grade, 56 out of 85 students are at or scored at or above the grade level mean. And then when you break it down by the percentage of students performing the average to above average range, that's 79%. So I want to draw attention to the next slide where you look at 6th, 7th, and 8th grade side by side. I think it really indicates here that yes, our 8th graders have higher needs right now, but I also want to point out that those students also had probably the toughest transition into middle school. And you can see nationwide, that's been kind of the news lately too, that 4th and 8th graders are really struggling the most because of the impacts that they had from the pandemic. So with these bands, the red, orange, yellow, green, and blue, teachers are able to pull up their rosters and each child has a color indicated by them. So that way teachers can take that data and figure out what this child needs specifically in order to help them improve. So what does all of that mean? That's all the numbers. Here's what we are doing. We do have some students who are struggling with basic reading skills, decoding. And what we've done is we've identified those students and we have begun using the SPIRE reading program. So the students who are identified for SPIRE, they are pulled out of their classes or they're pulled during WIN, and we'll get to that in just a minute, to receive the specific program to close those gaps when it comes to phonics. And we have had to train some teachers in that because most middle school teachers, they know how to teach the comprehension aspect of reading, but when it comes to decoding, that's a whole new world. So we've been very fortunate to train our special education teachers and our media specialists to offer this program. So that is addressing some of our students who are struggling with the decoding skills, and then to improve the overall language arts, because we know we have that level 3 indicator. We want to make sure that we are offering the right curriculum. So this past summer, and actually starting the end of the last school year, we really started exploring different curriculum options. And we settled on the EL curriculum, which is a comprehensive curriculum. It collaborates the reading and the writing. And it's nice because the 4th and 5th grade students are also in the EL curriculum. So now we have vertical alignment between 4th and 8th grade. And the fact that you can have a novel, that they also incorporate nonfiction in as well. If you're reading a fiction text, they incorporate nonfiction articles. They also have writing units within it. Right now, our 6th graders are reading Percy Jackson, the Lightning Thief, and they are going to be doing a research project after they finish reading the fiction novel. So very, very comprehensive curriculum. And we're very fortunate to have that now in grades 4 through 8. Which brings me to talking about writing across all content areas. Yes, we are writing in language arts, but we are making sure that complete sentences are required across the board. Students may not always like that, but if they are asked to complete an assignment in any content area, we want at least a capital letter and punctuation at the end. Again, talking about that adolescent brain, we know they're behind those cell phones all of the time, which does the capitalizing and spell check for them. So we want to make sure they are learning to pay attention to that on their own. We are also working on small group instruction in Tier 1. This is something we're really trying to help our teachers get a better understanding of, when you can take a small group of students using the data that you have and give them exactly what they need in a smaller setting within the classroom. We are currently, so that's Tier 1 instruction. So everyone's being exposed to that EL curriculum. And then Tier 2, actually, Ms. Haley and I, Peyton Haley and I today, we did a review of a program that would help the Tier 2 students. It's a computer adaptive program that would help fill in the comprehension skills. So Tier 1 is for everyone. Tier 2 may be for students who are struggling with the comprehension. And then Tier 3 is the SPIRE for students who are struggling with the decoding. And then also another Tier 2 support is WIN. We have our WIN block, which is what I need. We used to have it 2 times a week for 30 minutes where students got to do participate in clubs, extracurriculars, or remediation. After hearing some feedback from our leadership team, we've decided that starting today, we're going to run our WIN schedule 5 days a week. So Monday through Thursday, students will start their day with a 30-minute chunk of time where they can be doing enrichment, remediation, clubs, or some physical activity. On Fridays, that's when we do our Hawk circles, focusing on creating a culture of kindness. So again, keeping it specific to reading and writing, we do use that win time to address students who have specific needs in reading. We also made another change this year. Our media specialist is helping support our students who are struggling. She is pulling students for Spire, and then she's also going to be pushing into some classes to provide some extra support now that we've made our win change. And then last, our special education and media specialist teachers are participating in letters training. And this goes back to what I mentioned earlier. As we have students who are struggling with the decoding skills, we want to make sure they can understand how to teach students how to decode. So then once they are decoding and reading fluently, they can comprehend. And then recently, we've really reestablished our connection with the 5th grade team. So as students are transitioning from 5th to 6th grade, they have a smoother transition to middle school. So that's all of our reading and writing. Any questions about that before I switch gears to math?
So when you pull students, are they small group? I mean, 4 or 5 students together, 2 or 3, one-on-one? How is that?
So we'll start with the tier 3 with the Spire. No more than 5 are pulled at a time for Spire. The smaller the groups, the better. When it comes to small groups within the classroom, sometimes it may be one-on-one. And then we're really trying to model some of the small group instruction that's used at the elementary school level. We're trying to get teachers to figure out, okay, how do I pull 4 or 5 students over here, offer them what they need, while the rest of the class is working on something else. And that number can change depending on how many students you need to work with.
So right now you have 65% pass rate for reading of all students. What would your goal be for the end of the year? What do you hope to achieve as far as a pass rate is concerned?
So if you're talking about not including growth, or you're talking about this?
Yes.
I would like to get back to where we were pre-pandemic, but at this point, if we're at 65%, I would go through and look at the MAP data and see our students who were in the yellow to blue range and make a prediction off there. So I think for some grade levels, we can get back up to possibly 80%. I think each grade level may have a different prediction there. And looking at the MAP scores, my overall goal, I would say if we could get back to 70% this year, 65 to 70, and I'm saying that off the top of my head, maybe 72%.
And then more to follow next year.
It has to be, it's going to have to be incremental, and then focusing on that growth, I think, is extremely important. We're making strides in the right direction, but we know that there are gaps that definitely need to be closed.
And at what parts of parents playing, how are they kept up on what's going on?
So during, let's see, the first 9 weeks, we sent our fall MAP data reports home, so that way students or parents and students can see the growth they've made over the years. So that was sent home. And then with our report cards, we sent home our spring SOL testing data. And then when it comes to the Spire progress, our special education teachers send home progress reports with their students as well. And when it comes to the MAP data, we really try to include students in goal setting with that as well. That way they can be more invested in their learning, so they can see the progress that they want to make.
Same question for writing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's 45%.
That one, I feel like we can have a larger rebound with more of the focus and having more time in school. That I would like to see increase 70%. Are you going to hold me to these numbers?
Well, you would be above the division, certainly.
Well, and I think we can get there. I do.
I do too.
I like to be very optimistic. All right, we'll go ahead and, go. Ms. Ochek, did you have?
No.
We will move into math now. So looking at math overall, and again, these scores do not include the growth bands. We went from a 33% pass rate during the 2020-2021 school year to a 54% pass rate during the 2021-2022 school year. This is for all students.
That's
Then-
impressive.
So again, as you talk about the increase, I would like to continue seeing that increase. When you look at students with disabilities, we went from 17% to 29%. And you'll see in just a minute where the growth really plays a huge factor when it comes to the SOL scores from this past year. Because if you break it down here, this is where I'll let you step in as well. You can see that while the straight pass, meaning they scored 400 or above, was at a 54% for the division. But when you calculate the growth, we had 80% of students who either passed or demonstrated growth last year. And I think that's huge because, again, there were gains made last year. And you can see in each of the gap groups, there was growth made. 45% of our students passed the SOL test. But if you look overall, 71% passed or they demonstrated growth. Again, students with disabilities, that was huge. 20% passed, but again, that's 66% passed or demonstrated growth. And I think that's important to keep students motivated because they want to see, I passed, or excuse me, I showed growth. Maybe I didn't hit that 400 mark, but look how much I grew over the year. And again, same with economically disadvantaged.
One thing we do know about math is that was very difficult for students to learn math and to understand math concepts virtually. Our teachers did the best job they could possibly do, but when you're trying to teach geometry on a Zoom session and they're trying to measure angles and you can't be there to physically help them and you're trying to model it online, that becomes very difficult. Additionally, our parents did a great job with their children at home, but again, they're not mathematics teachers, so that becomes difficult too when you're trying to manage lots of things. So math instruction really did take a hit during COVID because that's something that's really difficult for students to learn on their own without some instruction and some guidance. And I'm not saying we're teaching them everything. There is exploration in math as well, but that was something that was very difficult during COVID. And so now that we're back in school and we have these students back in classes consistently, and teachers are being able to provide some direct instruction and they're modeling and they're watching students work in class and providing that facilitating when students are learning concepts, we can see what huge growth happened having those students back in school consistently. And I will have to say that our math teachers really did do a great job. And you can see how they really looked individually at students and saw where their gaps were. And it was, they were not remediating, they were accelerating their students' learning. So that's what we really talk about is it's not that we're remediating and we're going back and we're teaching 5th grade math. They're taking what they needed to know in 5th grade math and we're applying it to 6th grade math. They're taking what they needed to know in 6th grade math and applying to 7th and 8th grade math. So they really did accelerate their students' learning this past year.
And again, we administered the math map assessment in the fall, and teachers have been using this data to guide their instruction as well. And you can see the breakdown here. 36 out of 101 students were at or above the grade level mean. And that was 40, and this is in the 8th grade. 45% of students are performing the average to above average range. And you can see here that the strand we are focusing on in 8th grade is computation and estimation. That's where the largest group chunk of red is, followed by measurement and geometry. And we'll talk a little bit in a minute about what teachers are doing to focus on those two strands to reduce that red there. In 7th grade, we had 39 out of 94 students who are at or above the grade level mean. And 48% of those students are performing the average to above average range. And what you can see is the 47 students who are in the low to low average range. Those are the students that teachers are really focusing on to make sure they move out of those areas. And then in 6th grade, 55 out of 83 students were at above the grade level mean. And 72% of the students are performing the average to above average range. So that was pretty neat to look at there. So there we have red to reduce, but we also want to make sure that we are extending so that our students can continue to excel in math in 6th grade. And again, if you look at all 3 grade levels side by side, you can see where teachers will be identifying different areas of needs for our students. And our 8th graders, again, I think they hit the hardest and the largest impact from being out of school in their transition to middle school. So all of that is to say now what we're doing with that data. We have added in quite a bit to help support our students. And Desmos allows teachers to provide immediate students to feedback. So all of our students have their Chromebooks, students can be working, and the teachers can see exactly what they're doing. They can figure out exactly what slide they're on. They can even stop them if they are working too quickly. If you want to speak a little bit more about Desmos.
And I will say that's it. We're not doing only technology. Our teachers at the middle school, we change a lot of things up. They do a little bit of Desmos, they do some tasks, they do direct instruction, they're doing conversation and collaboration. So Desmos is one slice of that. And that provides teachers the opportunity to give immediate feedback to students if they're not understanding something, because they can watch what the students are doing online. They can pace them through a class. They can provide some direct instruction in the moment if they see students not understanding something that's going on with that particular concept.
We've also focused on small group instruction in math, and that's the same concept as English, as we were talking about earlier. There's support during WIN where students can be pulled. And then Dreambox, this supports students where they are currently. It's a computer program that's adaptive, and it's nice because students can do this during WIN block. They can do it during small group instruction during the classroom, or they could work on it at home. And we had a Dreambox challenge in October, and the grade level with who completed the most lessons is earning some recess time, because that's what middle schoolers they want to move. So we are incentivizing them through that. And our 7th grade students won the Dreambox challenge for October. We'll have another challenge in January. This year, we've also incorporated 9-week benchmark testing, which we just wrapped up. And then Dr. Walsh and I will begin those data meetings tomorrow to sit down with the teachers to figure out what that data tells us and what we need to do moving forward based on outcomes from the first 9 weeks. And that benchmark test was given in Performance Matters. So it gives us a good breakdown of our areas of needs. And then I will let Dr. Walsh talk about our Deeper Learning Mathematics Institute.
This fall, I started a Deeper Learning Math Institute, which is developed through the VDOE, and it helps teachers focus on differentiated instruction through rich math tasks, learning where students are in their learning trajectories, and scaffolding their learning for them. We have 3 of our teachers at the middle school that are involved in that institute. It's run through Canvas. We're doing some asynchronous work, and then we're meeting as well as a group. And we have teachers from the elementary school, from the middle school, and the high school that are involved in that. And we had some great discussion. Dr. Bishop was there with us the last time we had our meeting, and we had some great discussion. So the teachers are allowed, there are different acts in this Canvas course, and teachers can work at their pace and the act. And then by the time they finish, then we get together and we have discussion. We do our own math tasks. We talk about student work, looking at how we can support students in their mathematics. And that's going to run through December.
And then also we have our department meetings that happen monthly, and we're really focusing on vocabulary, because with the SOL testing, it's important that students understand, they can read the question, understand what's being asked, and know the vocabulary so they can apply the skills. So lots of different pieces go into taking the test. We're focusing on analyzing the data. Dr. Walsh has a wonderful slide that we're using to ask teachers what do they notice and what do they wonder about the data. And then also student discourse. We've started number talks, but that is expanded into data talks. That way students are actually talking about numbers and putting a better connection, more relevant real world connections to the numbers. Any questions about the math component?
So the deeper learning, is that considered professional development?
Yes, it is. There are 4 acts to the Deeper Learning course. And through it, they're watching videos, they're reading articles, they're responding to discussions back and forth with each other, and I'm monitoring that. My first go at Canvas doing those kinds of things, but it's gone well. And the teachers have been participating very well in that, and they've been engaged in the discussions. So we're doing that, and that started last month, and we'll be finishing it in December. And I have there's 16 in the course from the school division.
And that vertical alignment is important too. That way there are conversations from elementary, middle, and high. Again, making sure we're supporting students as they come to us and as we send them off to the high school. Then we'll take a look at the science SOL testing from last year. We had a 76% pass rate, which I will say this is amazing because that 8th grade science test incorporates content from 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. So we were very pleased to go from 38% to 76% pass rate. And there's no growth when it comes to the science and civics. It's you either have a score of 400 and you pass. There's no growth scores for that. And then for civics, we had an 80% pass rate last year on the SOL test. And I really think that with civics, it's nice because students are working collaboratively on projects. There's a great real world connection there. So students were able to take in those skills and they were able to demonstrate their knowledge on that assessment. So that is the picture at a glance for St. Clair Walker. Again, when it comes to the data, this is just a glimpse, a big overview. Our teachers are very fortunate that when they can go into MAP, there's a lot of breakdown. And then with our math benchmark testing, we can also look through each specific student. Because again, we want them to be successful academically, but also behaviorally and become good citizens. That's our overall goal. So trying to meet these middle schoolers where they are.
If you look at the science and civics compared to the state and division, we're above them. That isn't the case with writing and with English. I can't understand why we would be above the state average in those two subjects and not in the other ones. Do you have an explanation?
For the reading test, I want to say that a lot of it has to do with stamina as well. The passages are long, and for some middle schoolers, I would say probably even an adult, I don't know how exciting they may be for students. So building up that stamina again to read a long passage and answer those questions. With civics and science, it's pretty much a question and then a response. And they are moving into short answer for this year, which we'll be doing some field testing on. And then even same with math, there are multi-step problems in there. And it's building that stamina up again to read the question, understand the question, and then use your application skills.
Wouldn't that be the same case for state and division though? Stamina's the same from one 8th grader to another 8th grader.
Across the board.
I think they're enjoying their 8th grade civics and science classes because they're only taking civics and science SOL in the 8th grade. I think it speaks to what those 8th grade teachers are doing.
Yeah.
Also, they're enjoying and they're engaged in the classes. And that's really, I think and I think Dr. Sanders would back that up too, is that's the key, is to engage them in a way that whatever they're learning, it becomes fun. Clearly, they're enjoying science and history more than they're enjoying reading and mathematics, which doesn't say that reading and mathematics are not engaging, but I think they're still looking for that way to capture their attention in those grade levels also to make those courses as fun. And I think it's easy to look at numbers and then say, well, what are you doing and why is this? We're all doing it. We're looking at it to say, what can we do? What can we make different? What can we change? I would give a kudos to Dr. Sanders and Dr. Walsh and Ms. Haley also, that they really spent a lot of the spring and summer looking at things to change coming into this year, whether it's schedule changes. And as Dr. Sanders shared, they've already, the leadership team adjusted that win block and said, we need more time for this. And so I think that the positive thing also is it's not, we're going to start the year and do this and not look at data as we go along. It's a lot to look at, but I certainly do feel, and I think Dr. Bishop would support that also, is that they are continuing to evaluate the new data as it comes in. I think the hard part is engaging middle schoolers in a content that they just might not, or they've already put that block up. I don't like math, I can't do math. So there's already that block there, which the teachers have to overcome to engage them also.
And it may be just something small that we're overlooking to help the child engage, to take down that barrier where I can do it, I can't do it, I'm not sure what I'm doing, I don't want to embarrass myself by trying to speak up and, present something. So,
And that is true because middle schoolers don't want to speak up and ask for help. So, and even when you're offering one-on-one help, that can be hard too, because they know everything. So that is a barrier because, especially when they've been able to hide behind a computer screen or they don't have somebody right there, or when they haven't had someone right there, they're trying to transition back to somebody watching over their shoulder and encouraging them along. And that's why it's so important to build the relationships so that there can be the trust between the teacher and the student. They can buy in. Again, going back to that intrinsic motivation, we really are trying to focus on growing that for these middle school students so that they can realize that when they get to the high school, we've got to earn these verified credits to get that diploma.
I just wanted to make a comment from, I guess, being in that position of taking those 2 SOLs my 8th grade year. From what I remember, I think I got a perfect score on my civics, but I remember civics and science both being, like Dr. Sanders was mentioning, more straightforward with the questions. It's more multiple choice, and there were some like the drag and drop things and things like that, but differentiating that from math and English and writing, it's a lot more elaborate the way that they test with English and writing, because there's so many more steps to it. Like with English, you read the passages and there's not just multiple choice, there's short answer, there's the drag and drop again. And then of course with the writing, there's writing. So it's your own, there's a lot more to test you off of than just clicking A, B, C, or D. As well as math, there's a lot more work to it than just putting your brain into it and choosing an answer choice. So I can see, as a previous 8th grader, which doesn't seem like 4 years ago, but I guess it was, I can definitely see why they differentiate so much with the statistics. And I wasn't myself going into middle school through the COVID years, but I did go into high school through the COVID years. So I know transitioning from one school to another is difficult, especially during the pandemic. So I think that the improvement is going to keep getting higher and higher, and I have high hopes for you guys. I think it's going to go good.
Thank you. Thank you.
A lot of good news. A lot of work to be done, but I'm confident that teachers can do that.
I agree. We should continue supporting them so they can support our students.
Do you use volunteers at all in the one-on-one, or is it just too sophisticated to drop a volunteer? I mean, I'm listening and I'm hearing all of this and I'm thinking there's a lot of learning curve for someone to just.
It is, because I will tell you, I've had a learning curve with math. I would much rather write an essay or get up here and tell you a story than to look at the numbers side. Dr. Walsh has helped me become more competent with my math skills, but you would not want to just drop me off with a student. Might still use my fingers, and I know there are better skills out there and strategies. So when it comes to volunteers, we aren't currently using volunteers. There is a lot of back work that goes into teaching the concept, especially with manipulatives and some of the new programs out there. Even with the Aspire reading program and EL curriculum, I'm learning as I go as well. And that's what I tell the teachers as well. Let's take risks together. We know we need to make some changes. Let's go in here and take some risks. And I think sometimes that is a difficult concept for teachers to understand, especially when we start really drilling into SOL scores. Well, I don't want to take a risk. It's okay. We're going to try this together and go from there.
Thank you. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
as far as confidence builders, as far as those kids are working, is any of that being relayed to home to where it can help, that child can be helped to build that confidence? Because that's what a lot of this is. It's just the confidence that I can do this and stop second guessing themselves.
So we really do encourage positive phone calls, because often, we only pick up the phone when there's a concern. It's negative concern. So we've really been telling teachers, reach out when something goes well, or if you're seeing progress in Dreambox, if you're seeing progress in Spire, because I did leave that part of it out. We've had a couple groups of students almost transition through a whole level of Spire just since we've started after MAP testing. So we are trying to reach out more to communicate the positive growth that's going on there, and obviously the positive praise within the classroom is very important.
Thank you. We
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you.
Mrs. Fleet?
Good evening. I want to start off by saying that I am incredibly proud of our teachers at Middlesex High School and our students at Middlesex High School for working hard and building relationships with each other and families to be as successful as they can possibly be at the high school. So major credit to the hard workers at that high school for their results. I'm going to go as quickly as I can without speaking too quickly. Thank goodness Elizabeth teed it up, so you know what this is. We're at level 1 with all students in achievement in English and math. Of course, the gray you'll see no students. Those are numbers that are either you'll see too small, like there were too few students to actually register a score, or no students in those levels at all. Oh, sorry, went back. All right. Achievement gaps. We are on target in English, math, and science. A level 1 across the board. That is a testament to the hard work of our students and teachers who worked during the school day in small groups and one-on-one instruction, and also after school, and backing up to the year in which we were at home, virtual, the first part of the year, and then came back hybrid, and then eventually came back those who wanted to. Those Wednesdays where we didn't have students 2 years ago, our teachers pulled kids in on Wednesdays to try to work with the students who needed the most help, who they saw through data were falling a little bit behind or weren't achieving at the rate that we expected them to. And we found that one-on-one help on those days helped. They continued that last year after school. They're doing it this year after school. Because even with small group instruction and doing that in the classroom at a high school, you don't always have the time or the engagement of students to make the gains that you need to make. And some students, let's face it, as middle schoolers are like this too. They're a little bit more standoffish when they feel like they're not achieving at the same rate as their peers, and they don't want to be singled out, even though teachers are trying to help. We find that having them do some one-on-one after school or small group has been beneficial. We continue to do that thanks to our transportation department for providing after school transportation 2 days a week. We started that in September. We did it last year. We're doing it this year. Other students stay after school when there isn't transportation to get help when they need it. We have our student athletes, when we watch their grades, if we are concerned about some dips in GPA, we require them to go to after school remediation until 3:45 at a minimum. And then they can go to their practice or a game. Academics are first. Athletics are a privilege. We want our students to be good athletes and be involved, but they have to be well-rounded in order to do it. And it's our job to support them and give them ways that they can achieve that. Chronic absenteeism, level 2. Our office staff works diligently with sending out letters and making phone calls. We're working collaboratively as a division to step it up and have more meetings to make sure that students and parents are held accountable for those students being in school regularly. When students aren't in school, they are not learning at a high rate, and that one-on-one direct instruction is critical. Reading also. Go back.
The chronic absenteeism.
Mhm.
Certainly last year with COVID, wouldn't that have had an impact?
It did. And and again, we put some even more stringent measures into place this year. We're already seeing the benefit of having more checkpoints along the way with absenteeism. But last year, even though people thought last year was going to be more normal because we came to school like regular, it wasn't. And we still had students who were struggling with some emotional and mental challenges, some anxiety. That's real. We see it. We address that as well at school and try to help our students through those things. But some kids had trouble getting out of bed and coming to school. I mean, they'd felt so isolated during that 2020, 2021 school year and the year before when it shut down. That's something real that we really felt full force last year with our kids. This year is already better with attendance.
I would add also that just to separate out chronic absenteeism from truancy, it doesn't matter the reason for the absence. In order for it to fall in the chronic absentee category, the student could be in the hospital for a number of days, and they're going to notify them that they're falling into this many absences.
If they're over 18 absences, and it doesn't matter whether it's unexcused, excused, they're ill, it all counts. Even when it's a valid excuse, it counts in chronic absenteeism. But we're working with families to identify supports for even those instances where we can help with supporting attendance and being in school. Reading achievement, all students, you'll see 84% where just like Elizabeth, the light blue is Middlesex High School, the dark blue in the middle is division data, the orange is the state. So we went from 84% pass rate in 2021 spring to 94% pass rate in reading this past year. Black students, 64% pass rate year before last, spring of 21, 90% pass rate this past spring. Again, that is attributable to our students and teachers working together, small groups, one-on-one, after school, before school, looking at ways we could support them during the school year to make sure they were going to achieve. This is a graduation requirement. And they have to pass. And for those who don't pass this, we have an alternate assessment we can give. We have to give this one first, but rest assured that students have multiple opportunities to be able to get this verified credit under their belts. We work tirelessly to make sure that they all have what they need to graduate. Reading achievement, reading achievement economically disadvantaged, 75% 2021 to 90% 2022. I don't know if I'm going too fast. You've got it in front of you. Economically disadvantaged. Did I just do that one? Oh, special ed, that's the one we're missing. It was too small. Our special ed students performed well when I look at the data student by student, but because it was a small number of students, that's not reported on the DOE website, but those students did well. Writing, 77% pass rate. Writing is a K through 12 strategic instruction opportunity for students to do well. It is taught strategically. It's not taught giving a kid a writing prompt and having them write an answer to the prompt and then marking it up with a red ink and giving them feedback. That's not what good writing instruction is. What you're going to see at the high school is over the last several years, we have ramped up what that strategic instruction looks like and how we best support our students in writing well. It involves a grammar and mechanics piece and usage, as well as writing for content with details and good supporting information to write a well thought out essay. Gracie can tell you what that looks like at the high school. We want our kids to be prepared. What you don't see here is that the state also takes into account not only the pass rate on the SOL test, but we can give an alternate assessment if students aren't successful on this writing SOL test. And it's tough. It's a 2-day test. We can give the work keys, which is a business writing prompt for students. We have a lot of support from our literacy team, including Bate and Haley and our English teachers in preparing students for that assessment. When you factor those results in with the writing SOL, it jumps to 97% pass rate. And these are kids getting the verified credit to be able to graduate on time. But it's a different test. So it takes additional preparation and working with kids during, a block of time where we're not pulling them out of any type of core curriculum or working with them after school. It's a totally different prep for this. So it's not like we just throw them to this test and say, take it, good luck. There's a lot of prep work going on. Black students last year, 63% pass rate on just the SOL when we had the students take the work keys alternate assessment to gain that verified credit, which again is recognized by the state of Virginia, 94% pass rate. And very proud of our students for doing that. Economically disadvantaged students at 60%. I don't have the access to students who get the free and reduced lunch to be able to show you how well they did on the work keys. They did well. Okay, but that would, those numbers aren't out there for me to share with you, but they were good. All right, math. When you look at math achievement at the high school, this is algebra 1, geometry, and algebra 2. Not every kid in algebra 2 takes it, nor does every student in geometry take it. Quite a few in geometry took it who had taken algebra 1 at the middle school the year prior. They have to sit for and take one math SOL test at the high school, even if they've taken and passed a high school math credit course at the middle school. So we had students in algebra 1, geometry, and a handful in algebra 2. They went from 93% to 95% last year. Black students, 92 to 80%. Specifically, I know which 2 students in this subgroup did not pass their geometry SOL test, and I know why. And we have worked over the summer and with those students this year, especially holding them after school with their parent support to get them what they need. One student was virtual in 9th grade in algebra 1 and did not come to take the algebra 1 SOL test. So last year he was in geometry and he took the geometry SOL test, and he did well, but he did not meet the 400 at the high school. We don't have growth measures. You don't go from year to year like you do 6th, 7th, and 8th. So there is no growth measure. That student is back in a supportive AFDA class this year to be able to prepare him with some of the fundamentals he didn't meet virtually. And then he will take the algebra 1 test this year and he will be just fine. The other student in geometry moved to us with a very shaky background coming in off of virtual in another school division. We've got a plan in place for him. He's excelling at the high school. He's in such a great supportive environment here with us in a small school division, and he's happy. Students with disabilities, 94% 2021 to 100% 2022. Again, a lot of that goes to our strong math department. They are really good at grouping students, varying what they're teaching during the 90-minute block, having students stay after with them or coming in before with them or pulling them during AP lab if they have one to make sure that they are getting what they need and they get the support of students with disabilities in a resource class with some strong special educators who know this content well and can give an additional block of support for our students so they're successful. Right. Science, 74 to 83% from one year to the next. Black students, we went from 47% to 60% pass rate this year. That's the biology SOL test, in case some of you didn't know. We've got 2 strong teachers. We've got a newer teacher who came back to us who has really started partnering heavily with our other teacher in biology, and their content and instruction has just gotten stronger. Every year I can expect improvement in that. Students with disabilities, too small the year before last in 2021, so up to 63% pass rate for students with disabilities in science. Economically disadvantaged, 66% to 80%. In history, we're at 79. Some of that is we had World History 1 and World History 2 being tested last year. Students who did not pass the World History 1 SOL year and that COVID year that we were virtual, then hybrid, and came back. After meeting with the teacher in World History 2 and looking at some things that could be done differently, we've restructured how that's being taught and anticipate an even higher pass rate. History's always been a strength for Middlesex High School. What I found talking to the history teachers in the department last year throughout the year, not just waiting for data, but looking at how students were doing, was stamina, which didn't really click with me until I heard the history teachers talk about it. I don't know if you've looked at the World History 1 content and World History 2 content. It goes back to the most boring time period that you can imagine. I'm just going to be blunt. The kids are like, they're not connected to it. I mean, you're talking about, long time ago, back in, 3 digits and the beginning of time and, learning the religions and all of that. It's just a lot for students. And we found that they were getting exhausted with the stamina of basically memorizing a lot of that information. I see Gracie nodding. It's a lot. And if you're not a fan of history, that's a lot to cram in. It takes constant studying at night. We tell our students 10 minutes a night, 10 minutes a night. And if they don't like it, they don't study it. We try to do as much as we can and get as much out of them in the classroom because we know at home, some of them are just not going to do it at home. And it's not because maybe they're not motivated. A lot of kids have jobs. They're taking care of younger children. There's a lot going on in the home, but we know some of the improvements we need to make there.
Mrs. Fleet,
Yes.
you do know there are 2 history teachers sitting up here on this day.
Listen, I'm a history fanatic. I love it. Okay. Both of my kids love history, but I'm speaking for the children right now. all the children. This is the year we came back when we were remote and then hybrid. So chronic absenteeism was low. We had students who were virtual. They were counted as present. Last year, 27.5% were chronically absent. But again, that's all absences. That is illness. That is unexcused. That is excused. That is what the family took a prearranged trip and their kids making all A's. And we let them know they're going to take them for a week out of school. It all counts. But we have tightened up some things this year, looking at more checkpoints. This is just a shot of what you can't see student names, obviously, but at 3-day and 5-day letters and calls and plans all the way across the board, you'll see that there are dates and initials when things have happened, when people have done their part in communicating with parents, bringing them in, having meetings, having a course of action, and moving down that road when we need to. We don't have many in the queue right now who are looking at being truant, and that's a good thing. We don't want students to be truant. We want to catch them early on with that 3-day letter and 5-day call before things get to the point where it's a truancy issue. Target assistance. This is just a little bit of what we're doing. I've already alluded to some of it. Again, we're map testing this year for the first time in reading. We haven't done that at the high school. I found looking at this group of students this year, I wanted some more data when I looked at some of their needs. Again, you're comparing apples to oranges when you look at different grade levels. Our kids who will be testing this year cannot be compared to the kids who tested last year or the year before. They're all very different. I have high expectations for them, as do our teachers, but you need to look at each group and say, what are their needs this year? We've done the map testing for our reading and writing to make sure that we are looking at areas of weakness for students and diving into that early on by providing remediation, one-on-one, small group, chances during their STAR class, which is a resource class, to get direct reading instruction, specifically in the areas in which they are weak per child. The after-school tutoring, a special ed department trained in, believe it or not, helping students decode with phonemic and phonological awareness, which are the building blocks of being able to decode so that you can be a fluent reader, you understand vocabulary, you can comprehend what you read. Comprehension is expected at the high school. If we've got a student who's coming to us who's weak, they're not going to comprehend. If they can't read at the rate at which they speak, they're not going to be able to comprehend. By the time they struggle decoding all the way through a passage, they have no clue what they've read. They have been so focused on word by word by word that the question's like, what is it? And they've got to do that at the high school. So those are things that we're doing to help support them. Our teachers are wonderful at reviewing data, looking at benchmark testing and weekly testing and unit testing, and calling parents and having kids stay back for extra help, or telling parents things they can do at home. I make phone calls home prior to interims, prior to report cards. We don't want surprises. When that report card comes out, it's too late for that quarter. We don't want parents to feel like that. We want to let them know early on, hey, your student's missing this many assignments. We really like them to come in and make them up. A 0 doesn't show what they've mastered. It shows what they haven't turned in. We need to see what they're mastering and learning. So we all are doing our part to not just email, but make phone calls. I tell people an unanswered email is not contact. An unanswered phone call and a voicemail is not contact. I want to know that you spoke with the parent and you have a plan moving forward to help these students be successful. I think that's it. I didn't talk too much about our on-time graduation rate, but our 4-year rolling average, all students at a 97.2% graduation on time, Black students 100%, white 96.2%, and special ed 100%. So again, we're keeping our eye on graduation with all of the other checkpoints we have in place with verified credits and making sure our students are achieving, getting the standard and verified credits. Graduation is going to happen 99 to 100% of the time when we are making sure they're meeting those requirements from grade 9 on up.
So when, particularly the last couple of years, when your our eighth grade students have moved up to you. And we know that they have gaps in their education because of COVID. Have you been able to develop things to help them when they move in? Because obviously it's not the same, not what your teachers have been expecting in the past when particularly these last two classes have come in.
You know, one of the small things we do in the summer is have a freshman academy for 4 days to orient these students to the high school and to let them know the expectations of the high school, give them a lay of the land. They feel comfortable. We do team building. We get out of the building and do some fun things as well as looking at what high school looks like. But what we also do is communicate with the counseling department and Elizabeth and her staff at particularly the eighth grade team in the spring and say, give us a breakdown of who works best together? Like, what are the needs as far as what these students need coming in ninth grade? As far as math, do they need a year-long algebra 1 or do they need an every other day? Can we make these classes smaller so they're getting more support? That is our goal, is to try to lighten the load in each class so teachers have the flexibility to be able to work more closely with students instead of having 20 plus kids in a classroom. That communication with them has been vital in helping us make really good decisions about which classes our students go to. And helping those students and parents work with us to make good decisions when they're picking out their classes for the next year. But we rely on that input because we don't know the eighth graders coming up. You know, we go down for IEP meetings to look at how we can help them, you know, transfer up to the high school and have a meaningful IEP that's really going to meet their needs in a different school. Those things happen, but that conversation between eighth grade and our team is vital. So we make it in the right class. Thank you. You're welcome.
Great report.
Thank you.
Anybody else have questions? Thank you, Ms. Lee.
You're welcome. I printed out, there's some updated data. It looks a little different. I'm not going to read it to you, but it's more, it goes from 2016 all the way to the present. So you can see an even bigger snapshot of reading and math.
All right. Yeah.
All right, the floor is open for public comment. Ma'am.
I'm Mike Nez, live at Locust Hill. Those are some really informative reports. I appreciate that information. I was wondering if those reports could be made available to the public. I would like a copy of the PowerPoint. Another point I wanted to bring up is informing the parents. There's a lot of jargon, there's a lot of acronyms, and a lot of concepts that might not, you know, everybody's learning. And if there's a way to communicate to the parents in a language that they're going to be able to understand what is going on in their child's school, that would be something that I would like to see, if it's not already happening. That's all.
Thank you. Anyone else?
My name is Mary Lorenzino. I'm an Allen County resident, and I just had a feeling of gratitude being Thanksgiving in the month of November. And I just want to say how appreciative as a parent I am of our principals and all the things that they presented from last month to this month, and the growth and the gem that Middlesex County Public Schools are for this county. And I really hope that the residents here understand all the hard work that all of these ladies put in and their employees, and that stems from what you all do. But I'm just so grateful for their teachers and for the extra staff, all of the points, just to make sure that our little ones and all the way up to our graduates, get the care that they need. And I'm just so grateful for that. I just wanted to pass that along to you all.
Thank you. We appreciate that very much. All right, public comment is closed. Dr. Sites?
I have a few things just to give you updates on. Tomorrow we have a community stakeholders meeting at the high school. We had our first one in March with Mosley Architects. And we brought together a group of community members. I think we had about 35 people to start talking about the potential high school renovation and what that would and could look like, not just for our students, but for the community. We actually took some of that information as we started to work on our strategic plan also. So tomorrow night's meeting will be to give those, the members of that group, just an update on what Mosley has been able to present to us for the 3 options. You all have seen it, but I know everybody in the community is not. So they get to see that, and I'll give them an update on where we are, what potential next steps are, and then have them give us some input on our strategic plans, specifically our strategic objectives and those strategies. So that's tomorrow evening. I've been asked a little bit about, are we seeing some additional absences? Right now we're hearing lots in the news about flu, RSV, and those types of things. So just as an update, we are seeing a little bit of an uptick of more absences than we typically see this time of year. Our nursing staff tracks COVID on a daily basis, and we have shared spreadsheets. That's not what we're seeing. We're seeing little to no identified cases of COVID, but we are seeing more flu and strep, colds, fever, viruses, just things that are keeping kids at home. Parents are in contact with the schools, but we are seeing a little bit of an increase there. Not anything that's of a concern that it's, considered an outbreak or isolated to specific classrooms. It's kind of across the board. Simply Walker seeing, for whatever reason, a little bit more students that were out, especially today when I looked at that data, but it's not. I've spoken with Connie Bray, who's not our nursing supervisor, but kind of our lead nurse for the division, our go-to that keeps up to date with all the reporting and things. And so we're not seeing anything that's alarming on our end, but we are seeing kids at home sick. We'll continue to watch that data. And I just wanted to give a kudos to the elementary school for last week's Veterans Day performance that was here last Thursday evening. It was the first graders, and Renee Shannon, who's our music teacher, led that with some help with some other staff. So our first graders performed, and then the 4th and 5th grade choir. And if you didn't see it, it brought goosebumps to me just watching it. Those kids, it was great. And this place was packed. This auditorium was packed. So it was the first time since 2019 that they were able to, that Ms. Shannon was able to have that performance and have it open to the community. So she was excited, the kids were excited, and it really was great to see. Look forward to more performances like that. We'll have some winter performances coming up for all 3 schools. So we'll pay attention to those dates too. So, and I do want to thank Dr. Sanders and Mrs. Fleet and Dr. Walsh also for the level of information that they were able to share. It is a lot of jargon to try to help everyone understand. And even if you're on the reading side of things, you may not understand the mathematics side of the jargon. And so we understand that. We do spend time talking about the right report to send to parents and what that should look like and what it should not look like. And we're still, I think, trying to find that balance to help everyone understand. Because I can tell you, I still don't, even though I know MAP, because I was here when we first started using it as a principal, I still don't understand all of the pieces of that necessarily. So that's definitely a work in progress on being able to share the data with parents that they know what we're sharing and know what they could do with it also. But they've done a great job in dissecting that and sharing that with their administrative team.
Okay. We have a 4-year-old in the family who now knows vets because it gets sung repeatedly when I pick up and take to school. So we've got this hand signals, whole 9 yards going on. So we know that one very well. I even know that one very well. So, any old business to come before the board? I have one item of new business. Mr. Reed and I and Dr. Seitz attended a Zoom meeting with Hampton Road Sanitation District. Never thought I'd be doing that, but you know, this job does come with some interesting things. And you thought history was boring. Sanitation, let me tell you. Mr. Reed, you want to explain what that was all about?
Okay, Hampton Road Sanitation is looking to acquire this piece of property right across from the school, where the woods are and the little building, the.
St. Clair Walker.
Yes. And, they are going to put a pumping station there, and they need a little more property in order to have the footprint that they need to put everything there. So they are going to, that's why they were talking with us about acquiring some of that property. A wood tree boundary would still be there somewhat, kind of keep it from being such an eyesore. We had some questions about, some of the things that a pumping station would present. Odor would be one of those. We were concerned about that, and I think all of that is being addressed. And by putting it there, it is going to help save the county some money. So they have some information that they need to bring back to us, and we're just going to see what works best for everyone. So, but right now, that's what the county is trying to do, use that spot for a pumping station for Hampton Road Sanitation.
I believe they're coming in December, right?
That's the plan.
And so they'll present to the board, and it'll be something. I did suggest that they offer $40 million for that 0.5 acres, but they didn't jump on that. Then we had to explain why that was the figure that we thought would be pretty good, but anyway. Any other new business?
This could be new business. We had two very positive reports, but no reporter from the Sentinel.
I don't know.
What?
I don't know why.
But is there some way that we can get this information out to the Sentinel so that parents who read the Sentinel might understand some of the data that we were shared to them this evening? Is there some way that you can have a news conference in your office?
We could now, and it could be that he has zoomed in, I don't know, or that he can watch the recording. It might be easier for us to write what that looks like. Just if you're not familiar with some of the information that was shared, I think it can easily be maybe not on point in an article. Not that Larry, that I don't think that Mr. Cheney could do that, but it might be better if we put our heads together and wrote maybe an overview of what was shared this evening, and especially, I think, listing the things that the schools have put in place, and we can include it for the elementary school also.
I think that would be advantageous.
Good point. All right, any other? Any suggestion down on that end of the table? Are we good?
I think we're good.
Okay. All right, if there's nothing else, is there a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
All right.
We are adjourned.